Hello, everyone. My name is Emily Schuler. I'm a PhD student in clinical psychology at the Catholic University of Pernambuco in Brazil. Currently, I'm also a visiting student at the Oxford Institute of Population Aging. And today we're going to talk about perspectives on great-grandparenthood, and it's a systematic review. So as introduction, and I think it's also one of the reasons that we are gathering here online, it's the worldwide aging trend. So we are seeing a world that is aging and pretty fast. And it's not difficult nowadays to find families that have 4 or 5 generations that are living together. Maybe in the same house or not in the same house, but in the same city, in the same country, or even in different countries, but to have this multi-generational families, as we call them. Considering that I'm from Brazil, we see that this trend is being followed very fast here. So we have high and continuous percentage of older people in the country. And also we are having a very fast growing segment that is the 8 years old and above. So this generation of 80 years old and above is called here the great-grandparents generation. So we are seeing more and more great-grandparents in our society, and many questions arise regarding their role, their function, their status. Is it a role or is it the status? How is it lived out in the family? What tasks do they assume? What functions? Is there any like overlapping of roles with grandparents? And how is their intergenerational relationships going on there? So many questions do arise, which motivated this study. To do a systematic review and to see the different perspectives that we have in research worldwide regarding great-grandparents. So the aim of this study was to research the roles of great-grandparents in the intergenerational relationship that occur in the family through a systematic review. The intergenerational relationship was arised as a theme since we understood that great-grandparenthood is a generational role. So it is embedded and it's intertwined with generations. So it seemed as something interesting to analyze in the sense of this role in regard to intergenerational relationships. So going on to our research and design procedures, we had a guiding question that was, what are the roles of great-grandparents in intergenerational relationships? And this guided our research in the databases and which terms we used to find then analyze the chosen articles. So the research was carried out at an electronic databases between August and November 2019, and the following national and international databases were searched on. So CAPS Journals is actually a national database, but it includes a lot of international journals. PEPSIC is also national, but it's aimed more at a psychological view, also psychology journals, but does include also international journals. Cielo Latindex is a Latin American one, and Director of Open Access Journals, I guess you all know. PubMed, PsycNet, Redalyc, and CAPS Thesis and Dissertation Bank is our national bank of thesis and dissertations. And these were the databases that we searched on. Our search equation, and we use the free term great-grandparent or great-grandmother or great-grandfather and combine it with the Boolean operator and with the following descriptors. So elder person or older adult, intergenerational relation, and family, which are all from the terms from the MESH, so the medical subject headings. So the combinations were made in English, in Portuguese, Brazilian Portuguese, and also in Spanish, in addition to synonyms terms, as I told you, like elder and older adult, and intergenerational relation or relation between generations, and so on. And the search equation was from 2 by 2 terms, as we found out that when we put more terms, like 3, for instance, we didn't have many results as we wished, so we went 2 by 2 terms. So older adult and like great-grandparent and older adult, great-grandparent and family, great-grandparent and intergenerational relationship, and so on. So in regard to our inclusion criteria and data collection procedures, we wanted that all the article, theses, or dissertations were developed from an empirical study, so no review articles or even systematic reviews, although we didn't find any. We wanted them to be in English, Spanish, or Portuguese. They could be in regard to the methodology, they could be quantitative, qualitative, or mixed method. There was no time limit in the sense we went as far back in time as we found articles, and we wanted the studies to be open access. And in addition, they should contain the term great grandmother, father, or parents in the title or in the abstract, so that we're sure that the article would somehow be in regard to the subject that we wanted to research about. And we wanted also that the article would include the participation of this great-grandparent or the relationship with them in life. And this criteria is quite interesting, since there was quite a number of articles that were found, but this great-grandparent would already have passed away. Since it was more research in the sense of your ancestors or history, and then it wasn't something that we found was interesting, since this person would have already gone, and we wouldn't really understand the intergenerational relationship in life. So that's why we added this criteria. So this was our flow chart, just for you to understand how we did it. We found a total of 409 articles. Here you can see in the different databases how much we found. It's interesting that we had even databases that we didn't found anything with the terms that we used. And then we had an exclusion by title, an exclusion due to repetition, and exclusion by reading the abstract, and the N number is quite low, like that. And we had 12 texts included in the review. So first the procedure was first actually reading the title. So there were titles that we excluded right away. Then reading the abstract when the abstract was not clear, or to decide on the inclusion or not. The document was read partly or in full. The selection of criteria, the articles were according to the inclusion-exclusion criteria, and then we read the article in full and selected 12 articles. So going on to the results, as I have told you, 12 publications were selected and reviewed. The articles ranged between 1996 and 2019. And we had, as in regard to their locations, to where they were done and published, was 4 in the USA, 3 in Brazil, 2 in Mexico, 1 in France, 1 in the Netherlands, and 1 in China. It's interesting that Brazil is just behind the US, and I think it points out actually to the importance that the subject is gaining here in Brazil. But it was really interesting in the sense that the 3 publications from Brazil are from the Northeast, although we have a higher percentage of aging people in the South. But but it's still not many publications, although it's a growing reality. But let's go on. There were 2 databases that did not even show results with the certification that we used, which actually calls attention to the need for publications on the topic. And also, it's interesting to note that we had to go a little bit wider to include data and publications. And so we included posts that addressed the participation of great-grandparents as well as those that dealt with the relationship with great-grandparents. So sometimes some articles, the aim was not directly on great-grandparenthood, but it had the participation of great-grandparents and had data that we could use. So we included it in our final 12 articles. Yeah. So in regard to the methodology, we had 9 qualitative articles and 3 quantitative, which is actually really interesting in the sense that a lot is being researched in the sense of the quality of the relationship, not the quantity, although I think it is a cry out for also a quantitative systematic research on this topic of great-grandparents. As for the participants, great-grandparents were in all 12 articles in the age group of 74 onwards, which we could say that we would see that great-grandparenthood is a reality more in the advanced age, although I think it's only the research that has been done that's only on that, since in Brazil we do have still the reality of very young women having below their 20s having kids, and then these great-grandparents are also, let's say, not in any old age yet, and so we cannot generalize that great-grandparents are only in advanced age, so it's not necessarily linked to a chronological age. Great-grandchildren were up to 16, and we had numerous families with 4 generations. So this results led us to discussion and analysis, and it was constructed from the data from the studies selected for the review, and we identified 3 categories: issues related to aging, intergenerationality, contact and care, and types of great-grandparents' legacies. And so our first theme was this issues related to aging. And it's interesting, as I told you a little bit before, that this issue of aging was present in all of the studies. So drawing attention to the reality of an aging world. Another thing that came up is also the feminization of old age. So there were a lot more great-grandmothers in participation than great-grandparents. What was interesting to see was that many studies still portrayed aging in a perspective of losses and limitations. That is true, but it's not the only side to aging. And this was actually something quite surprising, in my opinion. Although other studies said that through the difficulties that arise when growing old, becoming a great-grandparent appears as a positive milestone in old age and as a renewal and as something that is considered a milestone and a positive one. And in regard to the intergenerational relationships, we subdivided it in contact and care. All revised texts in one way or another deal with intergenerationality, since the role of great-grandparents is always in relation to another generation. So especially within the family and sometimes even beyond the family. So the level of interaction between the generation of great-grandparents and the rest of the family, it will be dependent on the frequency of contact and the mediation of contact that is available. Although there was an article, Kniget 2016, that says the influence of great-grandparents can occur with or without direct contact with them, establishing these 2 types of multi-generational mechanism. And Schuler says there's the need of a mediation contact. So there is the need of another generation to mediate the contact between great-grandparents and great-grandchildren, for instance. That would be their children or grandchildren. In regard to care, it's interesting that grandparents appears in the children's horizon as people to be cared for. And then we have the rise of the so well-known sandwich generation, that is the children of great-grandparents that are kind of in between generations and trying to take care of both of great-grandparents and of grandchildren. But we cannot deny that great-grandparents will also assist in care of great-grandchildren. There are even cases of great-grandparents that care for great-grandchildren. And so there are different positions of great-grandparents. It can be a more emotional support, which is the majority one, but there can also be a more instrumental support. And the types of great-grandparents' legacies. And legacy is something that came up in all the revised texts and refers to the fact that great-grandparents always transmit something, whether through intergenerational relationship or maybe explicitly or implicitly, it may be something material that has a symbolic value, but it can also be something more, say, abstract in the sense that our values, traditions, and so on. Say, great-grandparents will look for a way in which part of them can remain in their great-grandchildren and also remain in the family, which appears to be something very unique to the great-grandparents' role. This need to transmit a legacy may be a material one or one of symbolic value. So our final considerations: the lack of data draws attention to the need for research and publications in the topic. We highlight also that it appears something very related to aging, but I think further research will denote that it may not necessarily be linked to a chronological age, especially in developing countries. We see great-grandparents intertwined and embedded in intergenerational relationships, clearly denoting that is a generational role. And another important aspect that stood out is the legacy, as I was talking earlier, as something quite unique in great-grandparents, more even than in grandparents, as it seems to have another connotation. The present study, of course, has its limitations. However, we hope that this research has contributed to an initial understanding of the role of great-grandparents and instigates further research. I thank you very much for your attention. Here are some references of our studies that we reviewed. And if you feel like that, please contact me and we can discuss any further questions or any further research. Thank you very much.